I had a revelation yesterday, right, while reading this scripture. Mark 11:24, it says, boldly believe for whatever you ask for in prayer. Be convinced that you have received it and it will be yours. Now, look, this scripture, it seems simple, right? But it's like, how do I actually believe what I asked for? Am I fully convinced? Because I don't know about y'all, but always like some doubt, you know? It's like, okay, but is it really going to happen though? Like, am I really going to get what I pray for? My question was, how do I get rid of doubt? And first I had to figure out what is doubt. So doubt is wavering or divided state of heart where you struggle to fully trust what God has said, who God is, or what he will do, right? I'm saying like, okay, now I have to look up scriptures on doubt to figure out how to get rid of it. Because everything is in the Bible. Any question that you have is literally in the Bible. Mark 9:23-24 says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. You really have to ask God to help you believe fully, help you come into full submission and full belief with what God has said and who God is, right? Matthew 19:29-31, which is Peter walking on water. Peter had full faith to sit there and go walk on the water. But soon as he took his eyes off Jesus, that's when he sank, right? When you take your eyes off of God and start looking at your current circumstances instead of who God is and what he's doing in your life, that's when your faith starts to fail. So look at this. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him. Which means that you cannot trust yourself. You cannot trust your own thoughts. You have to literally acknowledge God in everything. So every choice, every situation, every problem, you have to go to God and ask him, what should you do? Because ultimately you cannot make your own decisions. But the thing is, right, God doesn't force you into anything. Like, we have free will to either do what he says or to do what we say. So we have to sit there and choose that we're going to follow God and trust him no matter what the situation looks like, right? Look at this. Isaiah 41:10 says, fear not, for I am with you. So if you keep repeating scripture over yourself, that allows the enemy not to be able to penetrate your thoughts. Like, okay, he'll say something to you, but you always have a rebuttal because you know the word. To become fully persuaded in God and stop listening to your own thoughts and flood your mind, your thoughts, and your heart with the word. Literally, you have to read the Bible. Like, there's no option. You could pray, you could go to church, do all the things, but if you are not reading the Bible, you have no defense. The main problem is we are not putting on the armor of God. So when the enemy starts to plant doubt, we're unable to defend ourselves because we're not reading the word to really know. Like, you can say, oh, I'm putting on the armor of God. I'm putting on the breastplate of righteousness. Okay, but you living in sin. Putting on the armor is actually physically doing things in life. Like, if you are living in sin, you don't have your breastplate of righteousness on because the enemy, you have opened a door for the enemy to come in and attack you in those certain areas. If you are not living in sin, which is possible to do on earth, if you are not living in sin, you have closed that door so the enemy can attack you. Now, you saying you put on the breastplate of righteousness, right? You think you're fine. But now the enemy throws an arrow of depression at you. Now you got suicidal thoughts. It's like, because you've opened the door to allow the enemy to come into your mind and make you think things that are not true. But mind you, if you're living right, you already know God protects the righteous. If you are doing everything right, there's no way for the enemy to be able to attack you because you have your armor on. That's the way to get rid of doubt. You have to read the Bible and know what the word says to be able to fight truth against a lie. Now, that all ties into, what are you feeding yourself? If you're feeding yourself with the word, if you're not listening to your own thoughts and acknowledging in your own ways, you are fine. And you will have a rebuttal against the enemy anytime he tries to attack you with any doubt. It's like, okay, God said this, and I'm going to trust that because I know who he is. I know his character. I know he don't lie. Now, when the enemy tries to come into your mind and you thinking all these thoughts, it's probably because you fed yourself something that allowed the enemy to come in. Social media, your music, profanity, the people that you're around. That all ties into what you're feeding inside your heart. Whatever comes out of your mouth, whatever your thoughts are in your head, is because of something that you fed yourself. So you need to start feeding yourself the word so truth can come out. So truth can be your weapon against the enemy, against lies, against doubt, against fear, anxiety, depression, against all of that. It's literally the word.